I'm going to open the work session. We're going to start with 1485.
Good.
All right.
Want me to do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got a much better knock than me. Yeah.
I used to break boards back
So-
in the old days.
So this was an act establishing a study committee for the totality of circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. I get it right here if anybody wants to read it.
It's pretty simple, right? You want
Pretty
to set up a
straightforward.
commission.
Yep.
My understanding, I
Yep.
read
So
it
it's
online.
three members of the House appointed by the Speaker, one by the Senate, by the President of the Senate, one appointed by the Governor. The idea here is that from speaking to the bill's prime sponsor, he mentioned that we already have there is somewhat of an existing version of this that's covering kind of how the state of New Hampshire handled it. The idea behind this bill was to see how the like interactions between the federal governments and like non-governmental organizations, whether they be pharmaceutical industries or international organizations like the World Health Organization and UN, et cetera, like may have had influence over policy decisions made here at the state level and how they may have filtered down to the schools, et cetera. There's a whole list of things that they wanted to potentially cover here, like, and it's like covering everything from like Operation Warp Speed, whether that was handled censorship efforts that were done by big tech during the time. That we saw from like the Twitter files, things like that coming out, especially the federal government putting their thumb on the scales, the FBI in particular. As with like I think a lot of these study committees, I don't know how much we can glean from like the federal level. Like we're not gonna be able
It's
to.
another study committee.
It's another study committee,
You know, and we've got a ton of those.
right?
What's the breakdown?
The breakdown is 3 from the House, 1 from the Senate, 1 from the Governor. It's not as broad. Like I know that when we get to this one has to be amended when we get to the Liberty Bill. Like that one was like a gigantic commission with all kinds of international individuals. This is straightforward. This is something that I think we can handle. I don't know how much information we're going to be able to gain from like asking the federal government, hey, did you guys censor things, and whether or not they'll be honest with us. But we could of course ask like hospitals, like whether there was a coercion from the feds with Medicare funding or any other kind of funding, whether it be in the schools, like for
Talking about
compliance.
general persuasion?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, persuasion from the federal government or other organizations. So that's this bill. So I'm inclined to recommend for further study. I don't see any harm
For
to
the
study
legislation?
for the legislation. Yeah, exactly.
I have no problem with that.
You inclined?
So, vote?
Yeah, we could vote as a subcommittee. Like
Whatever you want to do.
yeah. Do you want to call the roll? I guess.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're making a recommendation for further legislation?
Future legislation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll be 4-0.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
The subcommittee voted unanimously to recommend further legislation. Recommended for something
Whatever the
of that
motion is.
nature. Yeah.
Voted, okay, and how do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And Gagny and Massimo, I'll vote with you, Carrie. They get a vote.
4-0.
Yeah, so voted unanimously.
All right, cool. So,
We'll close this
yep, we'll close. You want to not? We'll close the work session on 1485, and we'll open the work session on HB 1041. This is the relative to establishing a commission to investigate the USS Liberty incident and its aftermath. So I have spoken to like some of the activists with this and the bill's prime sponsor, and I remember that Representative Shurtleff did point out that some of the members of this, the as written, were problematic. We probably don't want like this international some of these international organizations. I have seen language that was floated to me after we already like interim studied this. So like there's a path forward for this that I think requires scoping it down to something similar to just like 1485 that we just did, something that's like House and Senate, and perhaps anybody else that wants to be involved, whether it be like the American Legion or any of these other veterans organizations in the state. Maybe somebody from SVAC we can tap to come and be a member that can represent the veteran community as a whole. But I mean, that's up for the whoever the bill writer is. I think there's a lot of merit with this bill. I personally, I believe that the federal government didn't do these men justice. The entire investigation, I think they said lasted like a week or so. Like there have been things like a stain on a dress that took months and months and months of investigation at the federal level. And here we're talking about service members that were killed by a friendly fire incident, got like less than a week of investigation, swept under the rug. I think that's a travesty, and I feel like this happened in 1967. These men aren't getting any younger, and it'd be great to bring these guys up before anything,
It's like my age level.
get them on the record, get them to tell their side of the story, and we could try to get to the bottom as best we can as a state. Once again, we're going to run into the same roadblocks trying to ask the federal government for transparency or information that they have. It'd be fantastic, as you had mentioned earlier, that if we get like our federal delegation to perhaps help us in this. I don't, I know that when this was filed, there had just been attacks in Israel, so there was like some of this felt like bad timing. But this is something this is from the 60s. Like this is an incident that happened a long time ago. The federal government looks the other way. They feel like a lot of people believe this to be a settled issue, but it's only because the federal government swept it under the rug, and we got some kind of apology from Israel. That doesn't justify, that doesn't give closure to these men that experienced this. Then were ultimately betrayed by the federal government when it came to getting justice that they deserve, or at least acknowledgement, so a thorough investigation to find all the people potentially responsible for this. A lot of suspicious consequences. Yep.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Do you want to do the mic? I don't know if this is being broadcast, but
I don't see the
Okay.
cameras on. I don't know.
I guess not.
They're on or not.
I'm not sure if they record these. Yeah. Good.
Anyway, all I know from reading this is that this ship, the personnel on that ship, the most decorated ship in the Navy. The Israelis paid millions upon millions of dollars in reparation.
Mhm.
There were 2 Congressional Medal of Honor winners on that ship. An unarmed ship that couldn't fight back.
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Plenty of multiple silver stars. Why was that done? You trying to buy the silence? I've been in the Navy. I've been on ship, but I was on a fighting ship, a destroyer, and we could at least fight back. And supposedly, Israel, I'm pro-Israel, 100%. However, in my opinion, what I see, you don't strafe a friendly country to you. You don't strafe the sailors that are on their lifeboats because the ship is sinking.
Mhm.
And you don't strafe them. They went after the Japanese in World War II for doing just that.
Yeah.
So I think this was egregious on the Israelis' part. But my thoughts were, what gave them the idea that they could do that and get away with it, do completely without any pushback from a friendly nation, which the United States was. What was the Liberty doing? It's a spy ship,
Mhm.
all new, unarmed, not one gun on a spy ship. Usually, sometimes they have an escort, but most of the time they go alone. Well, what were they doing in the war zone? To gather information for what? And what was the excuse? I know the size of a flag on a ship that's moving, that's underway. The flag is very, very visible from, I was a signalman. And even without binoculars, from about maybe 3 miles away, I could see that flag because
Yep.
it was almost as big as this, as these tables. There are a couple of these tables put together. And we had to know, I'd be able to identify which flag from which country.
Yep.
And so the Israelis, I don't care how fast you're going in those jets, you see that flag.
Yep.
The PT boats, you see that flag clearly. The testimony, I see this guy right here. There's no place to go. Where are you gonna hide? You go to below decks, you get steel shrapnel,
Mhm.
you're done. Or you take on water. So I'm firmly in favor of recommending this for further legislation with the recommendation that our federal delegation gets involved in this. They're the only ones that are gonna have the clout
Mhm.
to be able to maybe get any answers. We won't. I'm just talking in the wind right now.
Yeah. We can have the men come and testify again, get it on the record, but that's like,
Yeah.
I think that's the limit of our abilities.
They may show up for the exec session,
Yeah. Yep, they may.
but my recommendation, if you need a recommendation from someone, is that this is recommended for future legislation and including a request that our federal delegation gets involved in this.
Mhm.
If they don't know about it now,
I agree.
make it known to them.
I agree.
I agree with everything that's said. I was talking with someone and they said, will this though open up the committee to a lot of other things that happened that were egregious way back when, and will we be bombarded by it because of the fact that we did it for one, now we are expected to do it for everything that comes forward.
If it, I would say, I mean, I could understand the
Concern.
would you, like, anything that the U.S. has potentially been involved in, like, elsewhere? I mean, and then it falls on it'd be up to us to file it, right? Like, anybody could file anything. So if somebody wanted to file it, I mean, we could hear it out. And I think each one of those, like, depending on what it is, perhaps it has merit. Like, I don't know. Like, a lot of these things, like, we can't, I think after the first couple of these where it's like, well, we can't really do anything. We're just going to do an information gathering thing.
Knowledge.
Right.
And go from there and hope the feds pick it up.
Yeah. So I think after the results of something like this, they'll be like, well, you know, we got it on record. We did what we could do, but it's not like we as a state cannot necessarily hold a foreign country,
Right.
you know, responsible. So like nothing's going to happen. So they can file future bills based off of the precedent of filing this one, but I don't know what they may not see value in it. I don't necessarily worry about it. We can debate it here it'll probably come to us. I have no problem debating anything that anybody wants to file, something along those lines. There may be merit, who knows?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that forward because that was.
Yeah, well,
Valid concern.
And,
That's
you know,
a
somebody
good
said,
point.
especially if it's within the United States, not involving another
Mhm.
country, then are we being reflected? So,
Yeah,
because I agree with what you said.
my
Mhm.
only concern is, yeah, my concern is that, keep thinking that an ally does not attack another ally without.
Oh, no, there's no argument there.
What was the reasoning behind it?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
sticking in mind, because these
Right.
guys, I'm 80 years old, so these guys are probably in their late 70s and into their 80s. Some of them are barely walking, right? So I can understand and I was on a warship. You could fight back. These guys couldn't fight back. And there's the flag. Hey, this is Star of David. They're our allies,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting shot at, and there's nothing I can do about it.
This would almost make a very good Ken Burns type
Mhm.
documentary. And
Yes.
that would get it out to the public so
Hey,
much better
Who knows Ken
than,
Burns?
than a committee, report.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things like that out there. What struck me at a very emotional level was the veterans coming and testifying
Mm-hmm.
to us. And I didn't want to give them false hope about
Right.
what we could do
Right.
to
Right.
change their situation.
Yes, that has to, I think, be very clear. Like,
Yeah.
there's not
Yeah.
much we can do. We can't necessarily hold
Can't
anybody.
blow them off.
Exactly.
You know? I keep looking at this picture and I'm haunted. I got about 3 hours sleep last night because I knew we were going to appear today.
Mhm.
And I know what it's like. There's no place to go, no place to hide. I was on the signal bridge above the pilot house on the destroyer. The bean counters would say that in the gunfight, right, in the battle, my survivability rate would be like 35 seconds.
Yep.
Yep.
But when you're 20 years old, you're gonna live forever.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
That gets you until it hits you.
Yep.
Until it gets you, so.
Is there any federal committee or whatever that grievances like this can be brought to them? Or do they not have anything like that
Do
in
we have
existence?
a federal
I'm not.
armed services committee?
There is an armed services committee. I don't know.
They
Like,
handle
What-
this.
what-
it
what
would
they-
probably be this and like through the VA. Like, you'd have to probably like work with the Veterans Administration to see what they could do. Like, but it would have to be something similar to like what we're doing here. They'd probably have to form something specific about this.
Yeah, 'cause
Incident.
I was just wondering, the Fed should
Well-
have something that we could say,
Mhm.
okay, we're recommending this, for, future legislation, but that it can move on to the next step, which would be
Yeah.
whatever,
I mean,
as opposed to getting to a wall.
mhm.
Well, there's a Standards of Conduct Office. They each have grievances reviews, boards, but
Is that more about like inter-military?
yeah, it
like-
is. It's, to me, if I really wanted to make change now, I would talk to someone like a Ken Burns
Yeah.
and say, listen, these people are still alive, get their story while they're here.
Right.
Because I will tell you, I couldn't leave my seat listening to what they had to
Yep.
say.
Oh, I know.
And
I
they
was
are,
close to tears. I actually
Yeah.
was close to tears.
they are the best advocates that exist.
Yeah.
And telling their story is the best way to get people to
Right.
understand and demand change.
Right.
It's a good idea.
But
We'll
it's-
work on that, Lori.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
because I'm looking
You
at
know, Ken Burns?
I'm looking at the
Yeah.
review
No, that would
boards
be
and it's
good.
just like, I just don't think this is gonna go
I
anywhere.
could be
Yeah.
interviewed.
the one thing about so them coming before us like raise their profile, and perhaps like if we do go ahead with the legislation on this in the future, that would also raise the profile. It's things like that. You have to just keep mentioning it so it
Put it
doesn't
out
disappear.
there, put it out.
Yeah.
there. Right.
Put a bird in the saddle of the federal. Those
Yeah.
responsible.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the ones who made the decisions to squash this,
Mhm.
most of them are dead now.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
We're, we're talking
Yeah.
67.
Yep.
You know, the guys who were admirals back then were in their 50s and
Yep.
60s.
Yeah, they're not
I think they're gone. So
right. So anybody who's
maybe
trying to
somebody
cover,
else might,
we have to stir the ashes.
but this is the one that really, the report from the JAG, who at the time was a full bird captain.
Mhm.
Right, where is he? Yeah, this guy right here.
Yeah.
David Lewis. And all this information, they were only given like days to put something together.
Mhm.
And then, when they were ready to go to the, what do they call that, an inquiry?
Mhm.
An inquiry, naval inquiry, that, they were told by the one who was the admiral, the four-star, who was responsible for that theater of operations, at 6 or 7 feet, told them to squash it. But we have this information. You do not.
it's horrible.
You do not.
Yeah.
And he didn't make that decision on his own.
No.
A four-star takes his
Yep.
orders from
Somebody
guys in
else.
suits.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. I mean, I would like to make a motion to recommend for future legislation.
You need a
Okay.
step, yeah.
I'm not sure.
I usually it's pretty informal.
Yeah,
subcommittee,
Okay, fair
so
enough.
It's gonna be a unanimous thing anyways. I'm gonna hold on to this.
Yes. Yeah. Because I assume when we meet again after veto day, we're gonna just go over what we discovered,
I'll be
right?
bringing this in with me.
Awesome.
My wife said, "What's the problem?" I says, "I'm going to a subcommittee today
Mhm.
on
About
this,"
this.
and she had seen this before. I said, "Oh, the
Yeah.
picture of that guy with the burned face." And I says, "Yeah." And then the year before, I was like in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're gonna call the roll.
I am, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, Mannion,
Yes.
okay, Gagny,
Yes.
and Massmilla,
Yes.
and I'll say yes to.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, could you read back what the official, what we're recommending?
So Mannion makes a motion to recommend for further future legislation, but up here in the discussion, we talked about the inadequate investigation back in 1967, statement of concern getting information from the federal government, and felt our federal delegation should request a proper investigation.
Beautiful.
Okay,
If you can get a hold of somebody, if Ken, you get a hold of Ken Burns, get a hold of some of these people, survivors,
Oh, yeah.
and get a hold of the,
I'm sure
the
there are
survivors
many
of the he's
stories
dead.
out there.
This guy is dead. But I'm sure the family
Mhm.
probably has all kinds of notes and archives. And
Yeah.
that, I think that would make, I would definitely watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If for future, if we do if they refile this, amend it, like one of the guidelines of the committee could be whatever report we generate is sent to the federal delegation.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could do that. That could be written in the future bill. All right. So I guess with that, we can close
Yeah,
the work session on 10:41.
and you will entertain a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
so moved.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out.
Oh, that was good.